Welcome to Inside Aesthetics, the world's leading podcast for cosmetic practitioners and business owners.
Our podcasts are aimed at medical professionals and should not be used to make medical, legal, or financial decisions. You should get an appropriately tailored piece of advice from a professional in your country.
To show your support and stay up to date with our latest episodes, click the follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and if you're watching our episodes on YouTube, hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon.
If you're interested in joining our online community, being a guest on the podcast, or would like to work with us, all of our contact details are in the show notes. And now, let's jump into today's episode. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Inside Aesthetics.
How are you doing today, mate?
Good, buddy. I'm good. It's been an early start. Been good.
Lots of planning in the background. We'll dangle it at that for now.
Yeah.
There might be some big news coming.
Definitely some big news coming in 2026 for sure. So who are we talking to today?
So we've got Alex Thiersch. He is the CEO and founder of an American association called AMSPA, or the American Med Spa Association. And we got connected and we thought it'd be great to actually host someone from the States to talk about what they're doing. We've spoken a lot about compliance and business and support and everything that we do. But we found an organization in America who are doing something similar but different.
Yeah, they're an association that helps clinic owners, med spas, practitioners with compliance, especially from a legal perspective, because it is quite a disjointed industry. It's growing quickly. We're starting to become more sophisticated. Regulations are starting to kick in. And these guys are really leading the way in terms of helping practitioners and business owners do things correctly, raise their clinical and business practices. So we're very lucky to be joined by the founder today, Alex, and we're going to find out all about him, his background, what AMSPA stands for, what they do, and I guess growth for the future as well.
Absolutely. Alex, welcome to Inside Aesthetics. Do you want to tell everyone about your background, how you got into this crazy game of aesthetics and AMSPA?
Yeah. First of all, welcome. And I appreciate you having me. I was talking to my wife before I jumped on. She's like, you got to say good on you or good eye mate or something like that. I'm like, I don't want to be a total jackass. So I'll try to be respectful, but no, I really appreciate you having me. It's so interesting with the aesthetics market. We call them medical spas in the States, but it's obviously all of medical aesthetics. It is a very crazy industry to be in. And we've recently looked very much to Australia because it's a lot of what you all have done down there is about 5 to 7, maybe 10 years ahead of where we are. And it's very interesting to see kind of where you've come and the way your regulations have worked, the way that your brands have grown. What you guys are doing, I think, is super exciting. So I appreciate you having me, and I'm happy would love to tell you about my somewhat boring. I think it's very scintillating as a recovering lawyer. Those of you who are into the law and entrepreneurship is where I come from. And I got to tell you one thing, and I'm happy to get into it. I never in a million years thought I would be in medical aesthetics when I was growing up. This is not where I thought I'd land. So it's quite interesting to be here right now talking to you guys too. I'm an international player. It's amazing.
What sort of law were you doing before you got into this?
I was in litigation. I was a litigator. I had worked for a larger firm for a while. And the one thing I knew is I couldn't work for anybody. I have a real problem being told what to do, and so I tend to just.
Does your wife know that?
She does. That's why, and she's the same way. So We have a spirited relationship.
Yeah,
but we've been together for 26 years, so it works. So I quit and started my own law firm, and was focused primarily on doing mostly like employment litigation, doing a lot of sexual harassment claims and discrimination claims, but one of the first clients that I got when I started my firm was with this other lawyer that I was working with, was this RN locally here in outside of Chicago, where I live and where I'm from, who was running this thing called a medical spa. And this was, I'll date myself, but it was 2008, 2009, maybe. Medical spas were born in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. But truly they became what they are in the States after we had our recession in 2008. So it was like 2010, 12, 13 is when we really got the iteration of where we are today. So this was like in the stone ages of med spas. And this woman she was number one, was incredibly smart. She was so good at marketing, and she had built this brand where she was bringing in millions of dollars every year through this medical spa, but was also completely illegal. was doing everything completely non-compliantly, was being investigated by the state of Illinois, and was at risk of being shut down and multiple licenses being suspended.
Wow.
I was smitten at immediately, because I was like, this is an amazing industry. What is this that's happening? Because it wasn't just her, it was all of these other med spas that I started learning about were all very much in the same position. They were making money hand over fist. They were all illegal in one way or another. They didn't seem to have any idea how to get compliant. None of them were being illegal on purpose. So I want to be fair. They weren't trying to, it's not like they were running a drug ring or anything. They were trying to be legitimate businesses. There just wasn't enough guidance.
Yeah.
And so I started AMSPA by trying to provide resources to these medical spas, both around Chicago and then ultimately nationally, as a way to market my fledgling law practice. That was how it all started.
Yeah. The industry's been just on this crazy trajectory, hasn't it? And it seems like the regulations have really struggled to keep up. That's been really one of the issues here in Australia, is it's just been growing so quickly, and people not trying to do the wrong thing, but just not really knowing the right way. And the regulators are desperately trying to catch up. And it's really just been maturing and finding its feet and trying to do things the right way. It's been really interesting.
That's right.
Yeah, it's the same story here, UK, everywhere. So because of there's no formal training pathway or medical school or nursing school, you just become an injector, you do a course, and suddenly away you go. And then trying to dovetail the business side to that as well as the clinical.
Yeah.
It's a real mess when you think about it.
When I've been in the industry for maybe a little bit longer than you, Alex, and I was involved in the world's largest chain of cosmetic clinics when it was really small, called Laser Clinics Australia. And you're talking about hand over fist money. It was akin in some ways to like the Wolf of Wall Street kind of story. Like, it was just insane. You know, the businesses were growing so quickly, the amount of money that was being made, you couldn't spend it faster than you were making it. And it was just the Wild West. Anything went. It was pretty crazy.
It was. And back then, it really was the Wild West, and I could tell at that point that it wasn't sustainable. And that initial iteration of med spas was just out of control, because it wasn't, we had a couple big chains in the States as well. And it was so clear that they didn't understand that they were operating as medical facilities. They were providing medical treatment. And so they were so blatantly, unintentionally, unwittingly, but they were blatantly violating some very basic common medical regulations. And it was just a matter of time before somebody started to pick up on that. And so they did. And fortunately and unfortunately, when the Great Recession here happened and a bunch of things went south around 2008, 2009, that shut down a lot of businesses. But at the same time, it seemed like some of the regulators were getting wise to it. And they really started to look under the hood and say, what is going on? And so it's this next iteration, which I call like the second coming of medical spas, which is really post 2012, 13, is really a lot more mature. It's still not totally regulated. There's still a lot of folks who don't do things correctly, but it's a lot better. And so it's becoming more mature, and therefore it's scaling a little more properly. And so we're seeing a lot more regulated and sophisticated businesses now.
Yeah. What were the most common things, that dodgy things or blatantly illegal things that you were seeing being done?
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting, guys, because it's not like, I really break it into two buckets, because there's the truly dodgy side, which we still see now today.
Yeah.
And then there's the just unknowing side, right? And sometimes they come together. But the biggest thing that we dealt with then, and that we deal with now even, is just folks who are completely untrained, who are coming into the industry thinking that this is just an easy money grab. And they're going to do something because it's a cash profitable business, and it's a sales and marketing play for them. And they don't understand the fact that we are dealing with patient safety and patient care. And so they really come at it without any sort of training, and they buy product from disreputable sources, and they're doing things that they just really shouldn't be doing on the surface. And that's right. Even today, you'll see folks doing injectables in back alleys and out of nail salons, and things that are just so blatantly stupid. And they give us all a bad name. Those are the real true dodgy incidents that we're really trying to fight as an industry. It's the major thing that it's a massive pain in our ass right now because they make it worse for all of us. Because the other side to that, though, is there's a lot of folks who are very well-meaning, who are very passionate about injectables, who want to learn, who are passionate about safety, but are just set up incorrectly because it's really difficult even for recovering attorneys like me and for lawyers who are in the industry to understand what the laws are, because they're different in all 50 states. They're different based upon provider. They're different based upon treatment type. And so you've got 18 different things in confluence with different medical boards and contradicting nursing boards that are contradicting what the nurse practitioners are doing. And so all these different things are coming together, and it's really difficult for folks to understand. There's no consistency, like you said, or earlier when we were chatting, there's no board certification for injectors. It just all comes together. So it's been difficult for some of the folks who are trying to do it correctly to get compliant, and they're not helped by the folks who are just doing it off the wall crazy stuff. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So when you founded AMSPA in its early iteration, how did you educate yourself about all this stuff? And you're a lawyer, but the clinical side, you wouldn't have known. So did you have to create a board of members to lean on each other?
The first iteration was the Illinois Med Spa Association, which nobody should look up because it was just a terrible thing. But yeah, it really was. It was, and ultimately what I did, it was purely, again, from the beginning, started as a legal play. Like, we were providing compliance resources. So I wasn't getting too much into the clinical side of things at the beginning. It was just my whole basis for creating it was, is it a medical treatment or not? And once we got to that point, that's all I really needed to determine was, is it a medical treatment or not from the clinical side? And so I would get together the folks who were local and could help with that. But what we found very quickly was that people were thirsting for these answers and these resources, not just in Illinois and outside of Chicago, but everywhere. And so we had folks from California and Michigan and everywhere coming. And that's when we started to see that, okay, it's not just legal and compliance that folks are interested in. It's all of the above, particularly business was the other thing that I found very quickly was, yes, people needed training in the legal and compliance side, but even bigger was these folks were nurses or physicians coming out of the hospital, opening these businesses, becoming very successful, not knowing what they were doing. And they needed some real business training. And so that was the next thing that we dove into. But to answer your question, it was getting folks around who built the industry, who learned how to do these treatments, who then educated me. And it was really just learning as I went. I'm going to conferences, speaking at conferences, talking to plastic surgeons and physicians and derms and injectors, and just asking about it and learning about the different treatments. It wasn't quick, but after a while you start to speak the language.
Yeah.
Okay. So you obviously seen like a gap in the market, obviously, to help people become more compliant first and foremost, but obviously there's a commercial side to that as well. So how did you start to shape the business after the first iteration in Illinois? Kind of what did you do different, and how did you start to bring the business to reality?
So really what happened was I met my current law partners, they're in a firm called Bertadotto, which is based out of Dallas. And they were the only other lawyers that I had met who knew the compliance and legal aspects of aesthetics in the United States. And because there were no lawyers that were doing it. And that was a blessing because they recognized what I was doing. They realized that I didn't really want to be a lawyer anymore because being a lawyer sucks sometimes. It's just boring. And so they took on the legal work and helped build the compliance side and said, let's build this nationwide. And that was the first step, was allowing me to do this full time and say, okay, I'm going to work on AMSPA full time. I'm going to work on building some of the other states. I'm going to work on taking some of our education nationwide, building out the rest of the country as far as the different resources and member benefits. That was the first step that really helped. But then the biggest thing was when we decided to do our national conference, which is the Medical Spa Show. And that was in 2017 when we did that for the first time in Vegas. And that was the first time that we really provided, in addition to business and legal training is that we dove into and started providing a full suite of resources for medical spas. So it was clinical training. So we brought in injectors. We did a cadaver training. We did all sorts of laser-based energy device training, and really just tried to focus solely on med spas and the med spa owners and the injectors only, and to the exclusion of plastic surgeons, dermatologists who were doing their own conferences at this point. They were really focused on doing sometimes multidisciplinary conferences amongst themselves, but nobody had tried to really do it just for medical spas to the exclusion of all else. And so we said, this is what we're going to do. And we just went one of those things where it's like, I'm all in and let's do it. And hopefully it works. And if it doesn't, I can always go back to being a lawyer, file for bankruptcy and go back to being a lawyer. But it caught on immediately. And there was just such a thirst amongst the owners in the States for a community. It wasn't even so much, I hate to say it, like it was being, you got to be at the right place at the right time and then have the ability to say, all right, to have the balls, for so to speak, to say, I'm going to go for this. It's the right place, right time, and then the guts to say, I'm going to do it. And that's what it was. We just hit it at the exact right moment when the industry was ready for it. And we just made sure that we went all in and rented out the Aria Hotel in Vegas and just went full throttle.
So a lot's happened since you got started. So what do you see as the major changes, or I guess improvements to the way things are being done now?
Yeah, I mean, the businesses have gotten a lot more sophisticated for sure. And they've gotten a lot safer overall, which is why it pains me when I see some of these. In the United States, there's been a fairly massive PR campaign against medical spas that have come out in some of the larger publications. But it's gotten a lot safer because the businesses have gotten more mature. There's a lot better training. If you want to start or join or get into aesthetics now, there's so many different places you can go to learn the business side, to learn how to be an injector. Even from the compliance side, there's a lot more resources out there than there ever were in the past. So that's the main thing. It's become just a lot more of a mature, sophisticated business. But interestingly, though, I still find myself when I'll go speak at a conference, very often I'm speaking on the very same things that I was speaking on 15 years ago. And that it's just still, even to this day, yes, all of the things that you're doing in a medical spa, like laser treatments in America, those are all considered medical treatments. And there are certain things that you have to follow in the States in order to be compliant. You can't just buy neurotoxin from Alibaba and start stabbing people. You just can't, it's not allowed. And for physicians, even some of the biggest and most well-known plastic surgeons, we have to tell them your RNs are not able to practice medicine. So they need supervision. There needs to be delegation. And there's all sorts of things that they just don't realize. So we're still talking about it. So there's so much education that needs to happen. We've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on something you mentioned. You said there's been a negative PR campaign in the media in the States. We've got the same here in Australia. Where do you think that's coming from? Who's driving that? Who's lobbying that?
Number one, part of it is self-inflicted for sure. There's no question. As I mentioned earlier, there's some of the stupidest, god-awful accidents happen in medical spas where people will get arrested. There are janitors doing Botox or whatever it is. Or we had an issue in Texas recently where some totally uncompliant, no medical supervision, some poor lady passed away from an IV because they had nothing in place. And so it's stuff like that is the first thing. So you get these stories that come out, and anywhere the media loves these kind of lurid negative stories. And when you have things like that happen, it's very easy to latch onto. It's very easy to focus on the fact that there are this industry that is making a ton of money, that everybody's using. At the same time, it's been publicized through the Kardashians and Keeping Up with the Real Housewives, all of these things. It's gotten so ubiquitous on social media and on TV that it's everywhere. Yeah. So you have those two things together, and it becomes a real fascination in the media, not to mention that a lot of folks are doing these treatments. And so it's not something that is hidden. But then there's definitely a bit of a turf war going on where there's a segment of providers who typically, and this is not, I'm painting with a broad brush because it's not only dermatologists, but there's a segment of dermatologists specifically who don't like medical spas too much. And I'm not crapping on derms because we have a lot of them in our association and they're great, but there's no question that we've had some run-ins with a few groups that have been pushing a narrative that we are unsafe and that our providers are unsafe and that medical spas themselves have higher incidence of bad outcomes and side effects than, say, a board certified derm, and a lot of things that that aren't true, that are really, I think, provably false. And so that there's both of those things. So it's, and to an extent, I understand it because the medical spa industry has exploded, and there's no question that it's eaten up market share for some of these folks that are trying to grow, and so they're threatened. And I think so it's a turf war, but it's also our own stupidity doing stupid stuff and not self-regulating, not really having our own house in order.
Yeah.
And I think those two things together create an issue where you can have this bad. There was just a story that came out just today in like Allure magazine, which is Condé Nast, a massive publication about med spas, that was less than flattering. It was like the third or fourth one this year. It's been, so there's a lot of them that are being pushed by groups that would like to see us fail.
Good to know it's the same problems in America as here.
Yeah, it's basically sounds like exactly what we're dealing with here. And as you said,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
that makes me feel better a little bit.
Yeah, and as you said, I think that part of it is self-inflicted injuries just by doing silly things or being unaware of what they should be doing, and then there's also the commercial rivalry that then they can't compete commercially, so they'll attack from a medical perspective. Sometimes there's some valid reasons as to why these things are being done, but quite often there's just, as you said, there's things that are blown out of proportion or facts that are misrepresented, and they'll basically try and shut down the competition through this means rather than trying to combat them commercially. And I don't even think these people realize what they're doing. I think that they genuinely believe what they're doing. I don't think they realize the disingenuous nature of some of the things that they're doing, but that's just the nature of
totally agree.
Yeah. You touched on an interesting point around lack of business acumen, and that's something that sort of I spend a lot of my time helping business owners with getting their head around this industry. And I feel, and I'll be interested to get your perspective, that people have been very focused on being clinically safe and understanding treatments, which is obviously first and foremost the most important thing that they need to be able to deliver as safe and effective treatments.
Yeah.
But because the industry has been growing so quickly, and I think you mentioned this, that people have been successful in spite of having no business skills. And I don't think many people realize that it's not 2012 anymore. It's not 2015. It's 2025. There's a lot more sophistication in the marketplace. And there's a lot of people who are slowly boiling in warm water or cooking in warm water that don't know that they're going to be boiling soon. And that's my message is, hey, you need to try and get your head around basic business skills, how to read financials, have a plan, how to actually develop a proper marketing strategy. Who are you trying to attract as patients into your business? How are you trying to retain them? All these basic concepts that people have just been successfully able to do because of lack of competition and just this explosive growth of people wanting to get treatment. So I'd be interested to know, is that kind of what you're seeing as well? And what do you think the answer is?
I think 100%. It's a really interesting time. And I think we're absolutely at an inflection point with medical aesthetics right now, because immediately post COVID, there in the 2020, 22, 23, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. The growth was, it was explosive and it was easy. And everybody had money because there was so much cash in the market, and everybody wanted to get out. And so it was this kind of, it wasn't the real world, right? It was a fantasy land.
Yeah.
At the same time, we had in America, we had for the first time a lot of the first kind of round of consolidation from private equity and investors. So we had a lot of these folks coming in, buying up this kind of the original med spas that had been born in 2017, 18, 2015, around then. And to be fair, a lot of those groups haven't done a great job managing them, but what they have done is they're slowly starting, I think, to figure it out, right? Over time, they're learning. Some of that business acumen is starting to filter down, and it's also creating a little bit of tension when I think especially now when the economy is a little bit choppy again. This year's been pretty rough for a lot of med spas in the States. And so I think we're starting to see that lack of business acumen really catch up with folks right now, because if you don't have your act together, if you don't have a good handle on your cash flow, right? If you're not planning out, and you're handling your inventory and your pricing and your marketing strategy, and you have enough money to invest in marketing and be able to withstand this choppiness right now, we're seeing a lot of folks struggle and go out of business.
Yep.
And so it's this kind of confluence between the private equity / investor side that is forcing themselves and trying to make the industry more sophisticated a little bit by themselves, and they're doing an okay job at it, although they're screwing up too. But at the same time, they're forcing other folks to take stock. And we're seeing it front and center in that, if you just by way of a kind of an example, we do a industry study every couple of years. And I think the last one we saw, like something like 40% of med spa owners knew what their revenue sources were.
Yeah.
Meaning they're just making money.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're literally just making money and spending money. And they're going off of how much cash is in their bank account, how much is on their credit cards, and they're just spending and making money, which I'm sure you guys probably have seen this too. But there was absolutely no attempt to try to actually run it from a business perspective. And that can only last for so long. And then eventually it starts to catch up. We're seeing that right now.
Yeah. Hey guys, we've got an IA offer for our USA audience. We've partnered with PureWay, a company who are the leaders in sustainable medical waste management.
PureWay provide eco-friendly, fully compliant disposable services to clinics across all 50 states, and their big point of difference is how they handle the sharps.
So instead of simply collecting and transporting waste and dumping it into landfill like many providers do, PureWay use advanced processing, which is better for the environment by recycling as much of the materials as possible.
IA listeners in the United States get 20% off all orders simply by using the code IA20.
To access our IA offer, click the link in our show notes. We've spoken about this about 4 million times. And I think, having worked in a hospital and trained as a doctor, it's very easy to understand, but maybe from the business guy's perspective, it seems crazy. But in a hospital, you earn a single wage, that is your income. Yeah. And the tax is already taken out. You're not paying staff and you're not running a clinic. You're in a hospital and you just live off that wage. And that's the end of the sort of conversation every month. But as soon as you open your own clinic and you've got to pay people's super or pension or medical health or whatever other sort of costs are involved, suddenly it becomes far more complex.
Yeah.
And people just don't think about that because they've never had to before.
Yeah. It's interesting, Alex, you spoke about the post-COVID era where we had all this money being printed, everyone, this pent-up demand because our med spas were closed, we were locked down, everyone was just chomping at the bit to get back out there and get treatments. And I was looking at a lot of people's profit and loss statements post this little period of time, and they're looking at their revenues just exploded, and I'm looking at your profitability has dropped. You might be like making the same money, or actually you're losing money. And you start to investigate further and you're like, all of your input costs have gone up, you haven't increased your pricing, and these people have had no idea, and they've just been relying on their accountant to let them know everything is okay. And it's been a real education process for many people when I'm having these discussions with them, saying, hey, your accountant might be great, but at the end of the day, it's your business, and they're probably only going to ring the alarm bell when it gets to like mission critical kind of status. You need to be keeping an eye on your margins. But this whole concept of just profitability, it was just like, I might as well have been talking Mandarin. And I think there's some really easy wins, because I say to people all the time, this might seem scary, but if you can get through nursing school, if you can get through med school, like I can teach you how to read a P&L like very quickly. I can give you like really easy tools to work out how profitable you are, like in terms of a gross margin perspective on what you're buying something for, what you're selling it for. It doesn't take long, but I think there's a fear factor there from practitioners, because these are obviously highly intelligent people for the most part, and starting to try and learn a whole new skill at this stage of your career, it's quite scary. So I think there's a lot of people that just need to be brave enough to take the first step, say, hey, look, I don't know this stuff. I need to get some help. I really need to get my head around it, because you don't need to do your own accounting, but you need to know enough so that when you look at it, you're not just looking at hieroglyphics, and you can maybe actually sanity check what your accountant's telling you, and you can start to make changes on the fly, because business moves so quickly If you're waiting like once a
Yeah.
quarter or every half a year to start making business decisions, it can be too late. You need to be able to make like decisions like almost on a week to week, month to month basis. But I'd be interested to know what you think. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been two things. One is that it was so easy for so long. Like really starting in 2010 to 12. Like obviously when COVID first happened, that was there was some stress there, but if you made it through the first couple months, like you were fine, and then you were killing it. So it's been just so easy, and the market has been growing so fast. Nobody's been tested.
Yeah.
They've never had to test their theory, so they could just operate. They could just go, right? And patients would come in, money would come in. They didn't really have to pay attention to their profitability and they didn't know any better. They were just taking money out and spending money and open another location, hire somebody, and it was all great. So there was no outside forces to make them do it. Now, that's not the case anymore. And that has changed very quickly and very drastically to the point where people are seeing that it's a very difficult business to run. And it's the second point is that it's very different. Like you mentioned, these are folks that are coming from hospitals. They're not used to the back end office where they're paying folks, they're paying for leases, they're doing all of this different stuff. They're also just not there. A lot of them aren't wired that way. They're ready to treat patients, and that's what they want to do. They're not wired for the business side of things. And so it's a very different way of thinking. And then one of the things that I've also seen is that a lot of folks, like, medical aesthetics in and of itself is just a very distinct, different industry where you can't assume that you're going to run it like a dermatology office or even a plastic surgery office and think it's going to just blow up and be great, because it's very retail centric. The focus on marketing and process and all those little things that you're talking about, your gross margins, all of those things, which when things are great don't necessarily matter, but when it gets tight in retail, and which is what we're retail medicine, like those things become very important. No one has ever really had to cut anybody or tried to cut costs. We've not had to deal with any of those things, and it's happening. And I think folks are just not, it's really going to be a bit of a wake up call in the next, we're seeing it now, but I think even in the next 6 months or so, we're going to see it even more as this kind of plays itself out a little bit.
If you look at any industry, it goes through this life cycle where you've got your inception phase, your early adopters, then you have this growth, then you move into maturity. And we're at that point now where like it's consolidating. People are becoming more sophisticated. The patients are becoming more sophisticated. The regulators are now catching up. And it's like, this is the moment where you need to go, okay, like it's time to get serious. I need to identify where I'm weak, where I'm strong, and get my skills up.
So what resources do AMSPA actually have to support people with this knowledge? Is it webinars? Is it in person? Like, how do you give them these tools?
Yeah. It's all of the above, right? We have, obviously, our kind of main calling card has been, and this is no longer our main calling card, but this is how we started, was resources on how to be compliant. So you can get all those resources. Like we have matrices and documents and all sorts of things on what you can and cannot do in your particular state, what types of legal structure you need, all those types of things. We have also since built up an incredible library of business and clinical webinars that have everything from marketing to membership programs to anything you could possibly imagine. We've got hundreds and hundreds of hours of these things that we've been recording over the years, and we've kind of got them all uploaded up into our library that we have available for our members. We do live events. We do live webinars. We'll bring in speakers. We'll bring in injectors. We'll do webinars where we talk about salient issues that folks are talking about. We'll do business boot camps, which is kind of what we've been doing. Our kind of the business sides, where we'll kind of like a traveling roadshow. We'll go around the country and put on a 2-day business of medical spas event where we teach folks a lot of the basics that you're saying. This is what a P&L looks like. This is what it is. This is what revenue means. Like things as basic as that, up to really trying to say this is how you forecast out, trying to help people understand how to actually run a business. So all of the above. But the main thing that we want to be is a community. Like in addition to resources, which we're obviously big on, and one of the things we're getting into right now is the advocacy side, because of the turbulence that we see in the industry. There is legislation that's been introduced in several states that we're trying to impact because it can be very detrimental. But the community of getting folks together and just realizing that we are an industry and we need to be together on this, because if we're not together on this, it can be taken away, and it can be taken away very quickly, and things can go south very quickly. And it just takes one accident in Florida to some celebrity that could cause many things to happen. And that's what kind of keeps me up at night. And the only way to fix that is to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
And that's the most challenging part, because there's a lot of infighting and disjointedness, and we've got to get together on it, which is our main goal.
Yeah. We saw that story with Cool Sculpting a number of years ago, where like Linda Evangelista, I think it was, had a complication with what she had, like some hyperplasia or something. And that just basically killed the fat freezing. It's still there, but it's a shadow of its former self. It got decimated by that one story. And she wasn't even, a highly relevant star anymore. She wasn't in the limelight. She was still a known person, but it wasn't like a Kardashian. And that was enough to sink almost that entire segment of the industry. You remember that?
Yeah, there was I don't think the rollout was great as well. And there are a number of problems. And also we've got GLP-1s and, you know, superseded sort of the technology in a way.
Yeah. That could, or the wife of a senator, God forbid, or something like that. It's like that could change. Things could change so rapidly. But I also know that if we're together, like our industry is big enough and strong enough, and it has enough strength in its providers, including plastic surgeons, physicians, and derms together, where we could sustain it, but only if we're together.
Yep. Yeah, which is exactly why associations like AMSPA and some of the bodies that we have here in Australia are so important, because, together we're a force that can do a lot of good and can help raise standards and protect ourselves against attacks, and talk to regulators with some common sense and try and work out ways we can do it better without destroying the industry. But it does feel like people don't really see the importance until they have an issue. There's still an element of complacency, I feel. Do you see that in the States as well?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It's getting better. There's been this past year has been an eye-opening experience for a lot of folks because of some of the negative PR. And people are starting to see that this can be very quick in the amount of momentum that can be brought against us. But at the same time, I think one thing I'm very encouraged by is we're also starting to see a lot of industry from some of the large pharma companies, as well as the larger brands in America, all kind of start to say, we got to work together on this. We've got to set our own narrative. We can tell a story here. We can combine data on safety. One of the things I love about talking to folks from Australia is that your market is so mature that the amount of information you have on a lot of these treatments is robust. And we'd love to use it to show folks, like, look, this is, if you do it right, here's how safe it can be. Here's where you can get. And I think we're starting to see that. And I think folks are starting to say, look, if we can just get our acts together and regulate ourselves and get our own house in order quickly, we do that ourselves, we're going to be way better off, and a rising tide will lift all boats, especially when you consider just how small penetration of the market we've actually made so far. The amount of people out there who are interested in these treatments and who might be exposed to them now with GLP-1s and with other things, we're on the basement of a building that's going to be a skyscraper. And so it's exciting too. It's exciting where we are. I think there's a long way to go.
Yeah. And how do you connect your community? Do you have chat groups, or how do you actually build that community, and how many is in your community?
So it mostly lives on social media, and it's a lot of folks live on Instagram. And so that's where a lot of kind of our community is. We do have a chat group. We have a Facebook group. We have our own dedicated chat group. But what we've found, and obviously email, and we put out, like, we have our own podcast, which you guys will be on, and that's how we get a lot of our information out. But what we've found and one of the things that's been difficult, just to be honest, is corralling these different kind of cohorts together, because we've found that a lot of different groups of injectors or physicians or physician assistants or NPs, they coalesce around one another and they form their own whether it's a Patreon community or whether it's just a chat group through, whether it's on WhatsApp or just over text,
Yeah.
a lot of just plain old text messaging. And they form their own little communities and they become their own little bubbles. But ultimately, where most of the information is conveyed in our community and in the industry is over social media. That's where most of the information is conveyed back and forth, which is sad, but at the same time, it works. Now, I do think that we could do a lot better there. One of the things that one of my goals is for 2026, even if it is through social media or it's through WhatsApp or whatever it might be, like just to make sure that people have a place where they can turn for kind of a source of truth, so that they know this is where you can get real live. We don't want to be biased. We want to let everybody in, whether you have education, whether you have a training you want to do. To us, it doesn't matter. We just want to make sure that folks have a place where they can rally and find out information about the industry, because that's the most important thing.
So what does it look like if I was a med spa owner and I'm listening to this podcast and I'm thinking, Alex sounds like a great guy. It sounds like a great community to be part of. Can you just walk us through that process of how you onboard people? How do you assess their skill gaps? How do you start to address those gaps and so on?
We have a couple different levels of membership, and you go to our website, americanmedspa.org, or you call us up, whichever you want. And then it depends on, obviously, most of our members are in the United States. So we don't have a huge international community yet, although certainly that's on our radar. And so most of our members, most of the med spas in America are single location, single owner. So 90% of the med spas are 2 locations or less, right? So that consolidation, while it's happening, is still a long way away. So most of the folks are interested in learning about their particular state and their particular community. Mm-hmm. So the way we've done it is you can sign up for a membership and you get access to your state hub, where you get access to all of your state information, which is your local state news, your state laws and regulations, your state resources. You get connected with your kind of state chapter and all that kind of stuff. And so that's how we try to get folks connected. But then also, for the most basic membership, that's what we're offering, is that connection piece. For our next level up is a plus membership, where you actually do get access to all of our educational material. And we try to walk you through, okay, this is what you're going to need from a business building standpoint. If you want clinical information, if you want clinical training, here's where you go to our AIA section, which is our Academy for Injection Anatomy side. If you want more educational business training, you go to one of our boot camps, or here's all the forms you need. We have all of that stuff there. Now, we are using AI and using some of we need to do a bit of work on our website, because it has gotten a little clunky. We have so much information on it. It's like over the years, we've just hoarded the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, it seems like, pages of stuff. So we're definitely getting to the point where we're going to have an easier way to navigate it. But it really, no matter how big or how small you are, we've got a ton of information for you. So that's the main thing. And then we want you to come to our events. The live events are the best way that we have found in our industry to really connect with folks, because you're not going to learn, especially in medical aesthetics, which is very isolated. At our big event that we do in Vegas every April, that's where you can come and you can be with other folks who are just like you. And that's the main thing. It's like, you want to connect with people that are in your position, that can share information, support one another. And that's the biggest thing that gets the most exciting for us.
Maybe we'll be there next year.
Maybe. We'll
Who
see.
knows?
Yeah. I spent a few days in Vegas when I was in my 20s, and I had to leave after 3 days. My body couldn't handle it anymore. So hopefully now at 45, I'll come at it from a different perspective.
No, probably not. It's still 2 to 3 days max. Now, unfortunately, for me, I'm there for a full week when we do this thing. And so but I've learned to pace myself, where I hibernate for the first 4 days and just head down and get business done. But it is tough. It's an exhausting. The conference is 4 days. And look, we would love to have you. We'd love to do some sort of a ticket giveaway where we bring somebody in, because we want to show folks what the American market is like. Yep. And we have it at the Wynn, which is the nicest hotel in Vegas. And it's just an incredible event. So much positive energy and support. And I tell folks this, and this is not anything that we do. It's just the people in this industry are just so overwhelmingly positive towards one another. It's great to see. And so can't wait and hopefully we'll get you guys there. They'll be like, what language are you guys speaking?
Did you pick up the different accents even between Jake and I? Because he's originally from the United Kingdom, so slightly different accent.
Oh, yeah. See, I didn't even notice. That's how smart
notice.
I am.
There you go.
You must speak well, David.
Yeah, sure.
I just became a citizen a couple of weeks ago, so I'm now full Aussie.
Yeah.
So what happens at the conference? You've got multiple rooms or just one main room where talks are going on? Do you do business talks as well as clinical? How does it work?
Oh, yeah, no, we do a big kickoff session in the morning where we'll have a couple of big keynote speakers, and we'll bring in some of the bigger brands and just kind of get an update on what's going on in the industry. And then we have 12 different tracks, 2 or 3 different clinical tracks, from energy devices to advanced injectables. We'll have 2 or 3 different business tracks, from scaling to multiple locations to whether it's marketing, legal, and everything in between. Then we'll have sponsored education as well, where the brands can come in and display their wares. Massive exhibit hall with 150 companies that are in there. And then all kinds of other stuff and plenty of social events to keep everybody nice and lubricated socially, including on Friday night, which is the kind of the opening night. We rent out and take over the club Encore, the win, and just have everybody there, and everyone in the industry comes and just get silly and celebrate and have a great time. And it's meant to be a celebration of medical aesthetics as much as we like to work hard and play hard. But it's got everything. We want folks to bring their whole team. So we want them to bring all of their providers, from the most advanced to the beginners. We do on Sunday, we'll do a very advanced anatomy course using cadaver training. When we'll do that on Sunday, we'll have some really advanced courses that we do in workshops and everything in between. So it's become quite the thing. I have to say, every time I go, I look around, I'm like, this is not what I had envisioned when I was in law school. I'll tell you that.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, exciting. What dates is that happening? Remind us again.
It's April 9th through the 12th. It's over the weekend, so Thursday through Sunday, April 9th through the 12th. Thursday, some pre-show, so some pre-show education. Friday's when it really kicks off. We have a big members meeting and a reception on Thursday night where we have all of our members only. So it's only if you're a member of AMSPA, we come and we throw a big kind of reception for you and ply you with food and drink and prizes and swag to get everyone excited to be there. Yeah, it's quite the event. It's a labor of love too, because when I leave that event, I think I've aged like 5 or 6 years every time.
That sounds awesome. When we come on your podcast, we may have more information on a competition that we run for.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone wants to go to Vegas.
Can't wait.
Yeah. And how much does it cost to become a member of AMSPA? I think you said there was 2 sort of levels, a basic and a more premium.
Yeah, it's the basic membership, which is just for your individual, really is $395 annually, which is nothing. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to get the higher level, that's only $895, so it's annually. So again, we do have, for some of the larger kind of enterprise brands that are multi-state, we have larger brands, larger memberships for them where you can get access to all 50 states and a bunch of private trainings and things like that that's a little bit different. But those are the 2 main memberships that we have. Yeah. So it's very affordable.
Fantastic. We'll have all the links in the show notes to your website and how to join, etc. Yeah. If you had a crystal ball, where are we going with this industry, and where do you see the next opportunities for AMSPA to support people?
I tell you what, it's interesting with all of the regenerative medicine and those things that we're seeing. I think that is going to have a major impact, but I will say that I still very much strongly believe that we are on the ground floor of what this is going to become, simply because there's ability to make yourself look and feel more youthful is never going to go away. And that is only going to get stronger. And as the technology and the clinical responses and clinical devices get better, that's only going to, and less painful and more efficacious. I think that's just going to get better. Also, the the age at which people are starting these treatments is getting lower and lower. So it's, God forbid, somebody in their 20s starts doing Botox, that they're not going to ever be able to stop. They're going to be hooked for life. So I really think we're just scratching the surface. And when you think about this whole confluence of overall wellness and regenerative medicine coming together, I think it's entering a new era. And for AMSPA, for us, I see we've got 4,000 members, which is mind-boggling to me, but really it's nowhere close to where I think we can be or should be. If we really want to make an impact on the industry and really be representative and help protect and grow the industry, we need to be at 10, 12, 15,000 members, which is what we're trying to get to. We believe there's somewhere around 16,000 med spas in the United States right now, depending on how you count them. We're just scratching the surface. So our main goal for 2026 is to grow our membership and to get more members and to get more visibility into what we're doing, not just for the sake of growth, but because we truly believe that as the industry changes and as this inflection continues to happen, there's more and more dangers that are lurking that we have to be prepared to address. And the only way we can do that is if we do it together. And so that's the main thing, is how do we bring this group together? And that's what I'm most focused on, is short term. Let's get 10,000 people together, members together, where we know we've got resources to shape the industry and to offset some of the negative legislation that's bound to come, and really set our own narrative and tell our own story. That's what I'm looking forward to.
That's great. I really like that vision, and I'm wishing you all the best. We're trying to do the same here in Australia. So thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. It's been great meeting you and hearing about all the positive things that you're doing in the United States. And Jake and I wish you all the success for the future. Looking forward to working on our relationship with you guys as well. And maybe, as Jake said, we'll be over in Vegas next year, and hopefully we'll be able to do some cool things together.
And I appreciate you having me. And I'm interested. I can't wait to hear more and learn more about what you all do in the Australian market, because I think there's a lot of similarities and a lot of things we could do together. So I'm excited. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Alex. We'll hopefully see you in Vegas soon. Take care.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode, guys. To stay up to date with our latest news and episodes, follow us on Instagram, and we're now on TikTok.
You can also now watch our full video episodes on YouTube and Spotify. So if you like what we do, please give us a like and subscribe. Please also consider joining our Patreon for invaluable business and injectable education. Get access to our global community of like-minded professionals, hints and tips videos, bonus podcast content, and more.
All of our social links, Patreon, and contact information are in the show notes below, and we'll see you in the next episode.